The cold metal walls of the derelict research station groaned under the constant assault of Kelis 9's windstorms. Dust and ice particles whipped against the portholes, distorting the dim, emergency lighting. In the main operations bay, Aric Taven, a human engineer and former starship mechanic, wiped a streak of oil from his brow. His fingers, calloused from years of salvaging abandoned ships, trembled slightly not from fear, but from anticipation. The station had been deserted for decades, left to decay after the last scientific team mysteriously vanished. Yet Aric knew that this forgotten outpost held the key to a discovery he couldn't ignore, an artifact said to enhance empathic energy across species, a power the tyrannical Triarch hegemony would kill to. Control. You really think they left anything useful behind? A voice called from behind him. Aric turned to see Kayla, an alien woman from the Lunari species, stepping into the bay. Her iridescent green skin shimmered faintly, reflecting the flickering lights. I don't just think it, Aric said with a smirk. I know it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be freezing our butts off out here. Kayla raised an eyebrow. Confident, aren't you? Human? You're awfully brave for someone without a single galactic rank or military training. Call it stubbornness, he replied. Humans tend to survive the impossible. You'll see. Their partnership had formed out of necessity. Kayla had been on the run from the hegemony after refusing to sell her people's secrets. Aric had no intention of becoming a hero. He just couldn't stand idly by when innocence was at stake. The station's central console flickered as Aric connected his makeshift interface. Lines of code and schematics danced across the screen, revealing hidden compartments and long-dormant systems. Bingo! He whispered. Looks like the old lab has a secure storage unit. Should contain the artifact if the archives were telling the truth. Kayla stepped closer, her eyes scanning the data streams. Be careful. Triarch forces are already combing this sector. If they trace the artifact's signature. She didn't finish the sentence. The threat hung in the frigid air. Aric nodded, running a hand through his tousled hair. Relax. Worst case, we improvise. That's how humans win. Hours passed as the duo navigated the labyrinthine corridors, bypassing security systems and avoiding structural hazards. In the storage chamber, they finally found a crystalline device, glowing faintly with a bluish hue. It pulsed rhythmically as if alive. Aric reached out, and the moment his fingers brushed the surface, a surge of energy coursed through him, not painful, but electrifying. You feel that? Kayla asked, her hand hovering over the device. It's empathic, stronger than anything I've ever sensed. Aric nodded, eyes wide. Yeah, it's like it's reading us, understanding us. Before they could analyze it further, alarms blared. Red lights flashed as automated defenses roared to life. Outside, a squadron of Triarch hegemony drones breached the station's perimeter, their engines slicing through the storm. Figures, Aric muttered. Nothing's ever simple. Kayla grabbed his arm. We have to move, now. They sprinted toward the maintenance tunnels. The artifact secured in a containment field Aric had rigged. Laser blasts ricocheted off walls as they ducked behind consoles and collapsed support beams. Aric's human ingenuity shone through, improvising traps and decoys to slow the relentless drones. You're insane. Kayla yelled over the chaos. No one survives like this. I'm human, he replied with a grin, ducking a blaster bolt. We survive. That's kind of our thing. They reached the central lift just as a massive drone, heavily armored and equipped with advanced targeting systems, blocked their escape. Aric's mind raced. With no weapons capable of piercing its shields, he looked to the control panel above. A network of conduits ran through the station's core. If he could redirect the power, he could overload the drone's circuits. Cover me, he shouted. Kayla nodded, firing precision shots at the drone's sensors, distracting it long enough for Aric to reroute the power. Sparks and electricity surged, and the drone convulsed violently before collapsing in a heap of smoking metal. That was terrifying, Kayla admitted, lowering her weapon. Welcome to a human's world, Aric said, his grin returning. Scary, messy. But we make it work. They reached the surface and activated the escape shuttle Aric had salvaged days before. The storm had intensified, but Aric's experience with piloting and improvisation kept them steady. Kayla glanced at him, a mix of admiration and disbelief in her eyes. "I don't know how you do it," she said. "I've seen countless strategists and warriors, but you improvise and it works. Years of practice surviving dead planets, broken ships, and worse company," he replied, punching the ignition. "It's a gift, or a curse. Depends on the day." As the shuttle lifted off, the station shrinking beneath them, the artifact pulsed with increasing intensity. Kayla's expression shifted from awe to concern. "It's reacting to us," she murmured. "The artifact. It's attuned to the bond forming between you." Aric chuckled. "Then let's keep it that way. It might just save the galaxy one day." Far below, the Triarch forces scrambled, realizing too late that their prey had slipped through their grasp. In the vacuum of space, a single human and an alien companion held the key to a power far greater than any fleet of warships. Aric looked at Kayla, determination burning in his eyes. "This is just the beginning." Her hands rested on the control console, and for a moment, the two shared a silent understanding. The galaxy would test them in ways they couldn't imagine, but together they were unstoppable. The shuttle sailed through the storm, the stars above Kelis 9 streaking into lines as it jumped into hyperspace. Somewhere out there, the Triarch hegemony's grip would falter. Somewhere out there, hope would ignite, and it would begin with a human who refused to back down. The frozen wind outside the Kelis 9 outpost howled like a living creature, rattling the reinforced shutters as if demanding entry. Aric Taven crouched by the console, his fingers flying across the holographic interface. The readings were clear. The trackers had picked up multiple incoming ships, sleek and deadly, bristling with weaponry far beyond anything Aric had ever seen. But he had a plan, and for the first time in weeks, hope surged through him. Beside him, Liora, a young Cerulean woman whose violet skin shimmered faintly in the dim light, adjusted the small energy shield generator. "Are you sure this will hold?" she asked, her luminescent eyes reflecting both concern and quiet determination. "It has too," Aric replied, tightening the final coil of a makeshift conduit. "If this fails, we're not just outnumbered. We're outclassed, but if it works, we can channel them right where we want them." Liora nodded, understanding more than she let on. "You humans are strange," she said, a small smile tugging at her lips. "So fragile, yet so stubborn." Aric chuckled, brushing a strand of hair from his eyes. "That's one of our best traits, actually. You'll see it in action soon enough." Beyond the reinforced walls, the enemy fleet moved with chilling precision. The Hegemony Collective had sent an elite strike force, sleek black cruisers accompanied by smaller assault vessels, all equipped with plasma disruptors and gravitic launchers. At the center of it all was their quarry, Vadric, a notorious slaver whose reputation had earned him fear across half the quadrant. But Aric wasn't here for fear, he was here for justice, and for the family he had sworn to protect. In the corner of the operations bay, for Cerulean children huddled together. Their silver and violet eyes glowed faintly as they sensed the approaching danger, their empathic bond linking them with one another and, in a surprising twist, with Aric himself. Celeste, the youngest and most gifted, sensed every flicker of doubt in Aric's heart. She placed her small hand on his arm. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice calm beyond her years. "We believe in you." Aric felt a warmth spread through his chest. This was no ordinary rescue mission. These children, the Four Sisters, were more than innocent lives. They were the living embodiment of hope in a galaxy that had long forgotten what hope felt like. "All right," he said, standing and drawing a sleek pulse rifle from the rack. "Here's the plan. When they breach the outer doors, the corridor traps activate. The gravitic funnels will force them into the containment bay where Liora and I will have the advantage. Everyone else, stick to the safe rooms and remember your roots. Understand?" A chorus of affirmative nods greeted him. Even in the face of imminent danger, there was trust, pure and unshakable. It was a bond he hadn't known he could form with anyone again, not after years of drifting alone. Between star systems dot as the first blips of enemy movement appeared on the tracking arrays. Aric positioned himself near the central junction, while Liora took the forward corridor. They shared a brief glance, one that spoke of unspoken understanding. This wasn't just a mission. It was a statement. Humanity, fragile as it was, wasn't going to bow silently to tyranny. The outer airlock cycled open with a hiss, and a squad of heavily armed mercenaries stepped onto the barren floors of the outpost. Their black armor gleamed under the emergency lighting, each step measured and predatory. Aric's pulse quickened, but he reminded himself fear was a tool, not a weakness. On my mark, he whispered into the comlink, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. Inside the safe room, the children held their breath, sensing the tension without fully understanding it. But they trusted Aric. They always did. Now, he barked. The corridor floors beneath the mercenaries dropped away with a mechanical groan, plunging them into containment pits below. Simultaneously, reinforced bulkheads slammed shut, isolating the lead mercenary, Drax, from his master, Vaedric. The facility erupted into controlled chaos. Pulse turrets activated, knocking out energy shields. Emergency smoke filled the hallways, disorienting the remaining attackers. Aric moved with precision, darting through maintenance access panels to flank the enemy. He could sense Liora advancing from the opposite side, her energy weapons humming softly as she disabled the gravitic disruptors. Together, they created a perfect pincer, a combination of human ingenuity and Cerulean prowess. Drax, a towering void-born alien with black obsidian eyes, lunged toward Aric with terrifying speed. "You dare challenge me, human?" The creature snarled, claws gleaming. "I do more than dare," Aric replied, twisting a jury-rigged cable to collapse a ceiling segment just ahead of Drax. Debris rained down, staggering the alien long enough for Aric to tackle him into a support beam. The impact shook the chamber, but Drax's roar was cut short by Liora's energy pulse striking him squarely in the chest. Meanwhile, Vaedric attempted to flee toward the research chamber, but the youngest Cerulean, Celeste, emerged from the shadows. Her small hands glowed with healing energy, not to attack, but to channel a calming force that destabilized the slaver's control over his mercenaries. Fear spread through their ranks as if a living tide, weakening their cohesion. Aric and Liora converged on the slaver, their combined force finally cornering him. "It's over," Liora said, her voice calm yet deadly. "No more children will suffer under your hands." Vaedric sneered, desperation flickering in his pink, leathery face. "You think this changes anything? The collective has eyes everywhere. My empire isn't gone." "Maybe not," Aric admitted, catching his breath. "But we've exposed it, and the galaxy doesn't like being lied to." The rest of the mercenaries were neutralized through a combination of traps, tactical ambushes, and the unexpected but invaluable empathic support from the Cerulean children. Celeste's gift had grown far beyond simple healing. It was a conduit of resilience and courage that amplified the morale of those around her as the dust settled. Aric looked around at the faces of the children, their eyes wide but shining with trust. Liora placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did well," she said softly, her voice tinged with admiration. "They are safe because of you." He shook his head, a small smile breaking across his dirt-smeared face. "We did this, all of us, and it's only the beginning." Outside the outpost, the storm had finally begun to wane. The first faint rays of Kelis IX's sun pierced through the swirling clouds, illuminating the battered yet triumphant team. For Aric, this was more than survival. This was a glimpse of something he thought he'd lost forever: purpose. And perhaps in this distant corner of the galaxy, a new family. As he stood there, looking at the Cerulean sisters and Liora, he realized that humanity's greatest strength wasn't firepower or technology. It was the ability to act, to care, and to inspire. Against impossible odds, they had survived. Against the tide of darkness, they had endured. And in that moment, Aric Taven, once a drifting mechanic with nothing but his skills and stubbornness, felt something he hadn't in a long time: hope. The Kelis IX outpost was quiet, almost unnervingly so. Outside, the twin suns of the system dipped toward the horizon, casting long violet shadows over the frozen plains. Aric Taven leaned against the railing of the observation deck, surveying the aftermath of their victory. The air still carried the faint hum of emergency generators and the tang of ozone from disrupted energy fields. For the first time in weeks, there was a sense of peace, but Aric knew better than to trust it completely. Liora joined him silently, her violet eyes scanning the distant nebulae that stretched across the sky like rivers of light. "You're thinking too much," she said softly, resting a hand on his arm. "I can't help it," Aric replied. "Victory doesn't erase consequences. Vadric's network might be broken, but the collective will respond. They won't let this slide quietly." Liora's gaze softened, "And that's why we prepare. But for now, let's enjoy this small reprieve in the safe rooms below." The Cerulean sisters busied themselves with tasks that reflected their personalities. Celeste, still the youngest, carefully adjusted a set of nutrient arrays in the hydroponics bay, her hands glowing faintly with empathic energy that stimulated the plant's growth. Her older sisters monitored communication channels, decrypted residual data from Vadric's files, and helped document evidence for the Lunari Council. Each of them was extraordinary in their own right, but together they formed a bond that no algorithm or army could replicate. Aric descended to join them, drawn by a sense of responsibility and genuine affection. "How's our little sanctuary?" he asked, trying for a casual tone, though the weight of command always lingered in his voice. Celeste's eyes sparkled as she looked up. "It's growing. The plants like it here. And I think I'm getting stronger." Aric crouched to meet her gaze. "You've always been strong, stronger than anyone gives you credit for." Her smile was fleeting, as if she understood the fragility that came with power. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Aric exchanged a glance with Liora, who gave a slight nod. "It's possible. We have to be ready." The next 48 hours passed in a blur of activity. Aric and Liora fortified the outpost further, recalibrating energy barriers, reprogramming drone sentries, and ensuring every escape route was both secure and unpredictable. The children, meanwhile, continued their lessons, their empathic abilities sharpening with each interaction. It was exhausting but rewarding. Aric found himself marveling at the way trust could shape the young minds of another species, and at how deeply they, in turn, trusted him. On the third night, a blip appeared on the long-range sensors. At first, it was almost imperceptible, a tiny anomaly in the nebula that obscured the Keller system. But Aric's experience told him it was more than cosmic dust or a natural fluctuation. "Liora, something's coming," he said, tension creeping into his voice. She rose swiftly, eyes narrowing. "Ships? Scouts? Maybe. And they're approaching fast." The outpost's lights dimmed as they switched to battle readiness protocols. Holographic displays projected tactical grids, highlighting the anomaly as it slowly coalesced into recognizable shapes. Sleek warships emerging from the nebulous shadows, their hulls black with reflective alloys, engines pulsing with ominous red light. "Hegemony again," Aric muttered under his breath. "They're not sending drones this time, they're coming themselves." Liora's expression hardened. "Then we meet them head-on. Prepare the children? Yes, but carefully. They need to stay safe this time, not just hidden." Aric adjusted his comlink. "Linda, Celeste, everyone else. Stay in the reinforced safe rooms. Follow the routes exactly as we practiced. Don't take any risks." A chorus of affirmatives came through the line, and Aric felt a small measure of relief. They trusted him, and he would not fail them. As the first attack vessels entered the system, Aric and Liora moved to their positions. The corridor traps they had set previously were still operational, though they had added a few enhancements: magnetic pulse mines, gravitic constriction nets, and emergency energy barriers that could redirect the attackers. Every contingency had a contingency. The mercenaries aboard the lead ship, a towering cruiser named Night Fang, scanned the outpost for weak points. Drax had survived their last encounter, though battered, and now commanded a boarding team alongside the surviving Vadric loyalists. Their plan was clear: capture the outpost, eliminate the defenders, and reclaim the Cerulean assets. Aric's pulse rifle hummed as he positioned himself above the central junction, scanning for incoming threats. Liora glided along the corridor, energy blades in hand, her form almost spectral in the dim lighting. The outpost held a precarious balance between vulnerability and strength, and any misstep could be catastrophic. The first wave struck. Energy barriers flared as boarding pods breached the outer hull, mercenaries pouring in with lethal precision. Aric fired with comm accuracy, taking down targets before they could react. Liora intercepted a group attempting to flank from the west corridor, her movements fluid, almost BALLETIC. Through the chaos, Celeste's empathic link pulsed in his mind, a steady heartbeat of reassurance. He felt her fear, yes, but also her courage, amplified and directed at him. "I'm here," he whispered, even though she couldn't hear him aloud. "We're here together." And together they held. Drax emerged from a side corridor, massive and menacing. His black eyes gleamed with malice, muscles tensed for attack. Aric met him head-on, relying not just on firepower but on strategy, anticipating the alien's movements. Each blow and counterblow sent vibrations through the corridor, a clash of species, will, and survival instinct. Liora appeared beside him in a blur, her energy blade slashing through the mercenaries supporting Drax. "We've trained for this," she said, almost to herself, almost to Aric. "We can't fail." The battle raged, corridors lit with flashing energy, alarms echoing, and the distant hum of the nebula's electromagnetic storms adding a surreal soundtrack. Aric realized, mid-combat, that humanity's greatest advantage wasn't just ingenuity, it was adaptability. Every unexpected variable, every chaotic moment, was a chance to turn the tide. Celeste and her sisters maintained their link, amplifying the defenders' morale, subtly manipulating the environment. Lights flickered to create shadows that disoriented attackers. Minor gravitic shifts unbalanced the enemy, and energy flows were subtly redirected. The children weren't merely passengers, they were active participants, a force multiplier beyond conventional warfare. Finally, Drax lunged for a final strike. Aric anticipated the motion, using a combination of leverage and precision to redirect the Voidborn's momentum into a reinforced wall. Drax crashed with a resounding impact, stunned long enough for Liora to immobilize him with a gravitic stunner. Vadric, attempting to flee in the chaos, found himself cornered by the Cerulean sisters. Celeste stepped forward, her hands glowing, not with attack, but with an empathic force that left the slaver trembling. "You will not harm anyone again," she said simply, her small voice carrying the weight of conviction. As silence fell, punctuated only by distant alarms and the hiss of cooling systems, Aric finally exhaled. They had survived another assault, but this time, he knew it wasn't just about survival, it was about sending a message. Humanity, allied with the Cerulean people, could resist, could endure, and could win against overwhelming odds. He looked at Liora, sweat and grime streaking their faces, and allowed himself a small smile. "We did it again. And we'll do it again if we have to," she replied, her gaze firm and unwavering. Below, the sisters regrouped, their energy slowly stabilizing, their eyes bright with pride and relief. Aric knelt to Celeste's level. "You were amazing," he said sincerely. She beamed. "We are amazing," she corrected, glancing at her sisters. "Yes, you are," he agreed, standing and surveying the outpost that had become more than just a refuge. It was a home, a fortress, and a testament to the unexpected strength of unlikely allies. Outside, the nebula swirled, indifferent yet beautiful, a reminder that the galaxy was vast and full of dangers. But for the first time, Aric Taven knew that together with trust, courage, and a bond that transcended species, they could face whatever came next. And in the quiet aftermath, as the twin suns of Kelis 9 rose higher, painting the frozen plains with warm light, he allowed himself a rare thought. Maybe, just maybe, they were building something that could last, not just survival, but a legacy. The Kelis 9 sanctuary was quiet once more, though the comm was deceptive. Outside the reinforced walls, the frozen plains shimmered in the dawn light, and the twin suns cast elongated shadows over the outpost. Aric Taven moved methodically through the corridors, checking systems, inspecting energy barriers, and recalibrating the drone sentries. Each step echoed in the empty hallways, a reminder of both the victories and the battles yet to come. "Aric, you're pushing too hard again," Liora said, appearing at the junction, her violet eyes narrowing in concern. She rested her hand on his shoulder, a grounding touch in the sterile metal corridors. "I can't afford not to," he replied, his voice low. "The collective may retreat, but they won't forget. We need to be ready for anything." Liora studied him quietly. "And yet, the children are thriving. Celeste is stronger, the older sister's more confident. You're building more than defenses, you're building resilience. Don't forget that." Aric gave a small, appreciative nod, though his attention quickly shifted as the comlink chimed. The voice that came through was brisk and professional. "Aric, we've detected an unidentified signal approaching the Keller system. It's encrypted, but preliminary scans indicate it's carrying personnel with high-level clearance codes." Aric's brow furrowed. "Personnel with clearance? Could it be the Lunari?" "Possibly," Liora said. "Or it could be an attempt to lure us into a trap." Aric's hand hovered over the control panel, his mind racing through scenarios. The Lunari had been allies so far, but political agendas in the galaxy shifted like quicksilver. Even their victories against Phaedric had caught the attention of those who preferred order over compassion, control over freedom. "Prepare the children," he instructed, moving swiftly to the safe rooms. "We may have company. Stay calm, stay hidden, and follow the routes exactly as practiced." The Cerulean sisters glanced up from their activities. Celeste, still glowing faintly from her empathic link exercises, tilted her head. "Who's coming?" "I don't know yet," Aric admitted, kneeling to meet her gaze. "But we'll handle it together." Hours later, the unidentified vessel arrived in orbit. Unlike Phaedric's dark, militarized ships, this craft bore Lunari insignia. Sleek, angular, and polished, it radiated authority and confidence. Aric studied it through the viewport, analyzing the approach vectors, shield emissions, and propulsion patterns. His instincts screamed caution. There was an elegance to the ship, but even elegance could mask intent. Liora stood beside him. "They're here for a reason. We need to be ready for diplomacy or deception." The docking clamps engaged, and a team of Lunari officers entered the Kellis 9 outpost under strict escort. They were greeted by Aric and Liora, both armed but maintaining a formal posture. At the lead was Councillor Thale, an older Lunari with silver hair and eyes like polished amethyst. Her expression was unreadable, but Aric noted a faint tension in the muscles around her mouth. "Aric Taven," she said, her voice smooth and commanding. "Your actions against Phaedric have reached the Council. We are here to assess your methods and determine if further collaboration is warranted." Aric nodded, keeping his tone neutral. "You're welcome to inspect the outpost. The children are safe and our operations are transparent." Thale's eyes lingered briefly on Celeste, who had emerged from the safe room to observe the visitors. The youngest Cerulean's glow intensified subtly, a ripple of energy that Aric felt in the back of his mind. The Lunari Council valued discipline and order, but here, empathy and emotion radiated in tangible form, something their protocols rarely accounted for. "The children," Thale said, inclining her head. "They are extraordinary." "Yes," Aric agreed, "and their safety is non-negotiable. Whatever happens, they remain under our protection." A tense silence followed, broken only by the hum of energy systems and the distant winds sweeping across the frozen plains. Then Thale spoke again, her tone softer but still authoritative. "We understand your motives. Compassion is rare, but the galaxy is watching. How you proceed here will set a precedent." Liora exchanged a glance with Aric. "We're aware of that, and we're prepared." After the Lunari delegation departed, Aric took a deep breath, finally allowing himself to feel the weight of the day. Liora joined him on the observation deck, the vast nebula stretching across the sky like a living tapestry. "You were impressive today," she said softly, holding composure in the presence of the Council, protecting the children. keeping the outpost secure. Not many could have done that. Aric shook his head, letting a wry smile tug at his lips. I'm not sure anyone should call it impressive. Survival requires pragmatism and luck. Liora's smile was knowing. Perhaps. But pragmatism combined with compassion? That's rare, and that is impressive. Below them, Celeste and her sisters continued their exercises, refining their empathic abilities. Aric felt a subtle pulse through the bond he shared with them, a shared awareness, a connection that transcended species. They were growing stronger, not just physically, but emotionally and intellectually. The outpost was more than a fortress. It was a crucible of potential. Suddenly, a faint alarm drew their attention. Sensor readings indicated an anomaly in the nebula beyond the outer perimeter, an uncharted ship, materializing out of the clouds. Its signature was unfamiliar, larger, and more ominous than anything they had previously encountered. Aric's heart quickened. Liora, ready the defenses. This isn't Lunari, it's something else. The new vessel, massive and angular, approached with deliberate intent. Its energy signature pulsed irregularly, sending ripples through the Kelos-9 sensors. It's almost alive, Liora whispered, and fear mingling in her tone. Aric didn't respond immediately, focusing on deploying the automated defenses, calibrating energy pulse grids and preparing emergency contingencies. The vessel slowed, hovering just outside orbital range, sending a single, unmistakable transmission. This is the Shadovar. Surrender or be extinguished. Aric felt a surge of adrenaline. The Shadovar were rumored across multiple systems as merciless, near-mythical warriors, an alien species that valued annihilation over negotiation. They were unlike the Collective, unlike any mercenary force he had encountered. Liora's hand found his arm, steadying him. We'll fight. We'll survive. Together, yes, he said, meeting her gaze, determination hardening his features. And we will protect them, our family, our home. As night fell on Kelos-9, the twin suns casting long violet shadows, Aric and Liora oversaw the preparations. Celeste and her sisters remained in the safe rooms, their empathic abilities amplified by careful training, ready to lend strength if needed. The Shadovar vessel loomed in the nebula, its presence a shadow over the frozen plains. And yet, within the walls of Kelos-9, a human and a Lunari for Cerulean children, and their allies stood ready, not because they were the strongest or the most technologically advanced, but because they were willing to act with courage, ingenuity, and an unshakable bond. The galaxy had thrown shadows in their path before, and it would do so again. But they had learned one immutable truth: survival wasn't just about weapons or strategy. It was about heart, connection, and the unyielding will to protect those who could not protect themselves. And as the stars of the nebula glimmered above, Aric Taven whispered quietly to himself, "Let them come. We're ready." The Kelos-9 outpost had transformed into a fortress overnight. Emergency energy shields hummed along the perimeter. Drone sentries hovered silently in their programmed orbits, and every corridor had been rigged with automated defenses calibrated for precision. Aric Taven surveyed the control room, his eyes flicking across multiple monitors that displayed external sensors, orbital scans, and the emotional projections of the Cerulean children. "They're close," Liora said, her voice steady but tense. She stood beside him, hand resting lightly on the console, feeling the subtle pulse of the children's shared empathic energy through the interface. Aric nodded. The Shadovar won't give warning beyond this. They move fast, strike faster. His jaw tightened. "But we'll meet them on our terms." Celeste, the youngest Cerulean, hovered near the monitors, her small hands glowing with soft azure light as she projected feelings of courage and calm throughout the facility. Her sisters were focused, their eyes fixed on the upcoming confrontation, channeling their training into a quiet readiness that impressed even Aric. "Celeste, remember your breathing exercises," he instructed gently. "Focus your energy, don't expend it all at once. The Shadovar will try to intimidate, to divide us. We need precision, not panic." She nodded, her small lips pressed in concentration. Even at her age, she seemed to carry a wisdom that belied her size. Aric had learned over weeks that empathy, when honed, could be as powerful a weapon as any blaster or shield generator. The first assault came without warning. The Shadovar vessel emerged from the nebula like a spectre, its energy tendrils probing the space around Kelis 9, disrupting sensors and sending minor EMP bursts that rattled the facility. The automated defenses fired in response, energy pulses arcing through the void. But the alien ship seemed almost sentient in its evasive maneuvers. "Stay calm," Aric shouted over the alarms. "Deploy drone units Alpha through Delta. Keep them at range, and funnel them toward the decoy corridors." Liora moved beside him, weapon in hand, ready to support, but also prepared to intervene directly if any breach occurred. "The children are our priority. We can fight, but we protect them first." Blaster fire lit up the cold expanse of space outside the outpost. The Shadovar responded with precision strikes, their weaponry capable of slicing through reinforced metal as though it were paper. But Kelis 9's fortifications held, energy shields flickering under the strain but not failing. Aric's mind worked rapidly, calculating trajectories, shield capacities, and the timing of the drone countermeasures. He moved with the fluency of someone who had lived for moments like this, moments when split-second decisions meant survival or annihilation. A massive impact shook the outpost as a Shadovar strike slammed against the main docking bay. The children, secured in reinforced safe rooms, shivered from the tremor but remained calm, guided by Celeste's calming empathic waves. Aric took a deep breath and turned to Liora. "We need to lure them inside. Their vessel is powerful. But inside the labyrinth, they lose advantage." She nodded, understanding immediately. "We'll split them. You take the primary hallways, I'll cover the energy junction. The drones will create the illusion of weakness they'll overextend." The first boarding party arrived moments later, clad in black alloy armor, their movements calculated and predatory. Aric met them in the central corridor, a short, tense engagement erupting. His blaster discharged with precise timing, disabling limbs and forcing retreat without unnecessary death. He fought with purpose, but his mind remained on the bigger picture. Keep the facility intact, keep the children safe, and force the Shadovar into positions where they could be neutralized. From the secondary control room, Liora coordinated drone swarms, sending them into ambush positions. Her tactical commands crisp and efficient. 3 o'clock entry, Aric. They're moving toward the hydroponics bay. Celeste, send a wave of focus toward the south corridor to reinforce their resolve. The children's energy flowed outward, not as an attack, but as a protective force, fortifying the human Lunari Cerulean alliance. Even Aric felt it as a tangible presence, a buffer against fear and uncertainty. He realized then that strength wasn't just mechanical, it was emotional, empathic, and profoundly human in its execution. The Shadovar leader, a towering figure with obsidian armor and a serrated energy blade, finally emerged from the shadows of the central corridor. Its presence radiated dominance, and Aric felt the tension spike through the facility. "You are clever, human," it hissed, its voice a low, metallic rasp. "But cleverness alone cannot save those you protect." Aric squared his shoulders, gripping his weapon tightly. "You underestimate us. Strength isn't just measured in firepower. It's measured in courage, in resolve, and in what we're willing to fight for." The battle was fierce, energy blades clashing, blasters firing in controlled bursts. Liora flanked the Shadovar, striking with precision, forcing it to defend on multiple fronts. Meanwhile, Aric manipulated the environment, triggering environmental hazards, and channeling drone attacks to create openings. Celeste, from her safe room, felt the danger acutely. Her empathic link reached out, connecting with Aric and Liora, lending them bursts of focus and resilience. "Now, sisters," she whispered mentally, and the older Cerulean girls amplified the effect, creating a psychic resonance that disrupted the Shadovar's coordination. Finally, Aric saw the opening he needed. He lunged forward, using the energy of the empathic wave to propel himself past the Shadovar's guard. With a well-aimed strike, he forced the alien into a containment field specially rigged for the battle. Liora joined him, restraining the Shadovar leader with reinforced energy cuffs. The creature struggled, but the combined force of human ingenuity and Cerulean empathic resonance was undeniable. Breathing heavily, Aric lowered his weapon and looked around at the aftermath. The facility bore marks of the battle, but it stood intact. The children emerged from their safe rooms, their glow now soft and calm, reflecting relief and the knowledge that their protectors had not failed. Celeste ran to Aric, her small hands clasped around his arm. "You did it," she whispered. "We're safe." Aric knelt to meet her gaze, feeling the warmth of her empathic feedback. "Yes, we are, because we stood together." Liora approached, resting a hand on his shoulder, and because we never lost sight of what mattered most. Not victory, not glory, but family. Weeks later, the Kelis 9 outpost had recovered. Repairs were complete, and the outpost's role had shifted from a defensive stronghold to a thriving sanctuary. The children thrived under the guidance of Aric and Liora, training not just in survival and defense, but in empathy, science, and interstellar diplomacy. A Lunari delegation visited, expressing both admiration and cautious respect. The story of how a human, a Lunari, and for Cerulean children had defended themselves against the legendary Shadovar, spread throughout the galactic networks. It became a tale of courage, of ingenuity, and of the strength found in compassion. Aric stood on the observation deck one evening, Liora beside him, watching the twin suns set over the frozen plains. Celeste and her sisters played nearby, their laughter echoing through the outpost. "You ever regret it?" Liora asked softly. "Taking on all of this?" Aric shook his head. "Not for a second. Every risk, every fight, every sleepless night, it's all worth it for this. For them. For us." Liora smiled, her eyes reflecting the nebula beyond. "The galaxy is vast and dangerous. But here, in this small place, we've created something enduring. A family." Aric took her hand, pressing it to his chest. "And no matter what comes next, we face it together." Above them, the stars shimmered, witnesses to a bond forged in fire, trust and love. A human, a Lunari, and for Cerulean sisters had proven something profound in a universe governed by power and politics. Empathy, courage, and connection could not just survive, they could thrive, and even shape the course of history. The Kelis 9 sanctuary glowed softly in the twilight, a beacon of hope, a symbol of defiance, and a promise that even in the vast darkness of space, the light of compassion could never be extinguished. And in the quiet of the observation deck, Aric whispered to the stars, "We're ready for whatever comes next, together."